Africa needs to put its money where its mouth is.
But that's not what President Tinubu says that expose one of Africa's biggest problems. There is more to come. Let's dive in. Africa has the talent, Africa has the resources, Africa has some of the brightest minds on earth. So why is so much of Africa's success is happening everywhere else except Africa? What President Tinubu exposed will definitely shock you, because at the Africa CEO Forum, President Tinubu made a powerful statement about why Africa must build systems and trade with itself. But when the question came back, why not start now? You'd be surprised what he said as a response, and that is coming up in a minute. But before we get there, it is important to highlight the countries that have been united and is doing well, one of whom, President Tinubu, was ready to agree to authorize military action against. Nigeria, one of the third largest economy in Africa. South Africa is said to be the lead, and Egypt second, Nigeria third. In 1975, Nigeria and other countries formed an economic alliance, which is called ECOWAS, which stands for Economic Community of West Africa States. And they also have a security element to it. Now, President Tinubu was once the leader before it was taken over by Julius Maada, who is the chairman for ECOWAS from Sierra Leone. But the headquarters is mainly situated in Nigeria. Nigeria holds the largest bloc and perhaps one would say the military head or organization of that region. But at some point, when Niger decided that they were going to topple the president, President Tinubu of ECOWAS threatened to use a standby military force to reverse the coup of Niger. Now, what Tinubu did wasn't just separate or segregate West Africa. What he did, he united a bloc that has been talked about very much, a bloc that has been growing in military strength, and a bloc that had been growing economically as well. So when the threat of military action, then that led to a split from ECOWAS and a rejoin of military bloc between three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. And they formed a military pact to say, well, an attack on one is an attack on all. It is similar to the principle of NATO. So ECOWAS decided that they're going to back off a bit. The three countries formed an alliance called the Seychelles State, which is AES, and ECOWAS decided that they're not going to continue. President Tinubu made his statement, what Africa needs, and he made a response, and this response is very telling about why Africa is underdeveloped. Now, I am going to go on record by saying that Africa is going to be the global power of the future, and there is a video coming out that I want you to watch where Africa is definitely succeeding and is growing. So it's not all doom and gloom, but President Tinubu said this:
creating a platform. Look around the entire continent, 54 countries. There's none of us without a particular commodity available in the country or the other. Why not start an exchange commodity platform where we can trade with one another?
President Tinubu made a very, very valid and useful and a good point, and I totally agree with that. But when the follow-up question came, this is where I was shocked, and the crowd laughed. Watch this.
Why don't you start one?
You say?
Why don't you start the commodity exchange you're talking about?
I don't know. That was the answer. It just shows that based on that answer, as if we have no sense of direction. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what to start. We don't realize how important the continent is. What sort of response is that? You don't know. You came up with the problem, but why not come up with a solution? I think there may have been a language barrier understanding. I don't think he understood what she meant, because I don't believe a leader would have answered in that way. But for decades, African leaders have talked about unity, talked about trade, talked about self-reliance. Yet African countries still often trade more with Europe, China and America than with each other. Think about that for a minute. A continent with over 1 billion people, enormous natural wealth and unlimited human potential, still struggling to build systems and truly connect itself. And this is what made Tinubu's comments so interesting, because he wasn't wrong. Africa does need stronger systems. Africa does need to trade more with itself, and Africa does need unity. But here is the uncomfortable question. Why do African leaders keep identifying the problem but struggle to become an example or come up with a solution? One African greatest tragedy is not lack of intelligence, it's the export of its brilliance. African doctors helping building hospitals overseas, African engineer designing systems overseas, African athletes becoming global star overseas, African tech minds driving innovation overseas. The talent exists, the discipline exists, the expertise exists. So the real issue may not be African people, it may well be African system in itself. Without trust between African nations, trade slows down, industry weakens and foreign dependence grow. And that may be the real reason Africa continues to move slower than its potential. So was Tinubu exposing Africa's biggest weaknesses, or exposing the failure of leadership to finally act on what everybody already knows? Now it's your turn to sound off in the comment section. Were you surprised by Tinubu's response to the follow-up question? Or did you believe that there was a language barrier, didn't really understand what the question was? Because surely a man of his stature would have had some sort of solution based on what he said. Or was he put on the spot and he didn't anticipate that question? Do you believe that Africa will be the next global power? I certainly believe so. Sound off in the comment section. Let's have a discussion and a debate, and we love to hear your views. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I shall see you on the other topic.